July 1st, 1916, 7:30 a.m. With a single whistle blast, 120,000 men climbed out of their trenches and into the deadliest day in British military history. By sunset, 60,000 would be dead or wounded. Some never made it past their own barbed wire. This is the heartbreaking true story of the Somme's first day, where courage met catastrophe. Welcome to Historical Stories, where the past doesn't just speak, it screams. The Somme, a day of unimaginable loss. The air smelled of wet earth and cordite as dawn broke over northern France on July 1st, 1916. Along a 25-mile front, young men from Britain's new army, clerks, miners and schoolteachers turned soldiers, checked their gear one last time. Among them was 19-year-old Private Willie Jackson, a former Manchester shop assistant whose battalion had spent weeks rehearsing this moment. The generals had promised them this would be the big push to end the war. At 6:25 a.m., an ear-splitting silence fell across the front. For 7 days, British artillery had fired over 1.7 million shells at German positions. Now the guns stopped. In the sudden quiet, birds could be heard singing. Then at 7:28 a.m., the ground itself seemed to erupt as 17 massive mines containing 45 tons of explosives detonated beneath German lines. The blast at Hawthorn Ridge was so powerful it was seen from observation balloons 20 miles away. 2 minutes later, whistles blew along the entire British front. "Over the top, lads!" officers shouted. Willie's company climbed the ladders in orderly lines, just as they'd practiced. Many carried 60-pound packs with extra rations and supplies for the expected advance into German territory. Some kicked footballs ahead of them, believing the artillery had wiped out all resistance. They were tragically wrong. The week-long bombardment had largely failed. German troops had weathered the storm in deep bunkers up to 40 feet underground. As the British advanced at a walking pace, as ordered, machine gunners emerged to find perfect targets. The slaughter began immediately. Near the village of Serre, the Accrington Pals battalion lost 584 of 720 men in 30 minutes. At Beaumont Hamel, the 1st Newfoundland Regiment was cut down en masse. Only 68 of 801 answered roll call that night. Willie's battalion fared no better. As they crossed no man's land, German artillery opened up with shrapnel shells designed to maim rather than kill. Willie saw his best friend Tommy literally vaporized by a direct hit. Another man stumbled blindly, his face a mask of blood from a shell fragment. The barbed wire they'd been told would be cut remained intact, creating deadly bottlenecks where men piled up like slaughtered animals under machine gun fire. By 8:15 a.m., Willie found himself alone in a shell crater, the only survivor from his platoon. The horror only intensified as the day wore on. Wounded men drowned in water-filled craters. Others became entangled in uncut wire, their screams drawing more fire as comrades tried to rescue them. At a first aid station behind the lines, overworked medics performed triage by lantern light, separating the salvageable from those left to die. One doctor later wrote, "We ran out of bandages by noon and were using strips of uniform shirts. As evening fell, the true scale of disaster became clear." The British Army had suffered 57,470 casualties, including 19,240 dead, the bloodiest day in its history. Some units lost every officer who went over the top. The 10th West Yorkshires counted 710 casualties from 800 men. At the village of La Boisselle, the Tyneside Irish Brigade advanced 3,500 yards, straight into a German killing zone that left 2,000 dead in an area smaller than a football field. Willie survived by playing dead for 9 hours until darkness allowed him to crawl back. He would carry pieces of shrapnel in his back until his death in 1971, but never spoke of what he saw that day. Like so many survivors, he left the war behind, but the war never left him. The Battle of the Somme would continue for another 141 days, eventually claiming over 1 million casualties for just 6 miles of gained territory. But nothing would ever match the sheer concentrated horror of that first day, when Victorian ideals of warfare died in the mud of northern France. Among the recovered bodies was that of Captain Wilfred Nevill, who had famously kicked a football ahead of his men as they went over the top. The ball was found nearby, riddled with bullet holes. In death, it became a symbol of the tragic gap between expectation and reality that characterized the entire offensive. The Somme showed the World War's devastating cost. But sometimes, against all odds, courage prevailed. In our next story, we tell the incredible survival tale of the Lost Battalion, trapped behind enemy lines, where 600 Americans held out for 5 days without food or water, refusing to surrender even when surrounded by German forces. If these stories of sacrifice and survival matter to you, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Every view helps keep their memory alive. Until next time, remember, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.